Sweet, so this is week 2 for the SAE Tuakana Teina initiative. This week we're going to be going through stage design using Google Sketchup. Sweet, so a little bit of background for myself. Third year audio student. We had a Tuakana Teina initiative at the University of Auckland when I was studying engineering. During that time I tutored engineering design, structural mechanics, mathematics modelling and fluid dynamics. Also DJ for the past 6 years. Sidetrans at a few festivals and a few other events, drum and bass. But yeah, I've done stage design for the past six and a half years. So here's a few pictures of the DJ sets that I've played. This is one of the main projects. We'll be going over this one today. This was on festival a few years ago. Designed and built this stage. There was on the year before. It was Dimension Festival that I also done. Dimension Festival last year. These are a few events I put on. High Distinction, I was also the in-house tech at Studio the Venue all of 2020. Sweet, so Tuakana Teina. We brushed over this last week, but what we're going to do is start implementing this more often. Essentially means older sibling, younger sibling. It's a way for us to teach and pass on knowledge. It also reinforces learning through teaching to others, and it also allows us to share insight from personal experience. One of the main things about experience is you make a lot of mistakes, so I'm helping as best I can by teaching the mistakes, the lessons I've learned from mistakes, and hopefully you guys don't have to make as many mistakes. Sweet, so for stage design with SketchUp, pretty much what we're going to be going over is the basics of using SketchUp, 3D warehouse, construction considerations, and project management tips. Sweet, so what we can maybe do is just jump straight in. So this was on festival, the one that I showed you in the photos. Essentially the way that we work is we come up with a concept of what we want it to look like. The theme for this festival was Wizard of Oz, so we decided to do an Emerald City. Essentially what we did first was go through an initial concept. So what we went through first was initial concepts, just getting ideas how we would achieve this. This was an idea using tubes. This was an idea using panels to make it look a little bit more like an Emerald City. We then decided on using an image that we found online, and we turned that into a stage. So what we ended up doing is so this is one of our bigger projects. The considerations we had to take into place is that there was going to be a line array that was going to be hung, and we needed to make space for the subs. Apart from that, our design considerations were only working backwards from what truss we had available. So I'll touch on this a little bit later, but essentially what I did was design it using truss sizes that were available, then 3 meter lengths. So this was 6 meters high in total, 3 meters across in the bay, 3 meters across on each of these, and then 3 meters across on the side. Essentially that would give us our initial frame. I also designed it to have this cantilever out the front to just give it a little bit more presence. We then designed the back to be made out of scaff. So this is what we ended up coming up with. What that looked like at the end. This is us starting it off. So the scaff and the truss was all made according to the plans. We started framing it out. The way that I'd done it is I'd placed these frames out in 1200 meter centers. That was the size of the core flute sheets that were available, and then we just built on top of that. I'll show you guys a few more progress shots. So this was a lot of a bigger job than we're used to. Essentially, the best way to design a lot of this stuff is know what systems you're going to work with. So I just jump back to these slides. So when it comes to designing and building stages, the things that I kind of learned in retrospect that I love to give to you guys initially is know your budget, know how much you've got to spend and what you're allowed to work to, know your team, who's going to be helping you out, who's going to be there on site with you, know your time frames, how long you have to set this stuff up, know your resources, what you have available, especially if you're building stuff. It's hard to plan to build stuff when the nearest Mitre 10s are a while away, so know your resources. Also know your access, know how you're going to get everything in and out of there. Is SCAF available? Are you able to get a cherry picker in there if need be? Sweet, so this is the one that we're just running through now. So essentially what I instructed the people to do is we set up this truss according to the sizes that we had available. I built it all using 3-meter truss sizes with box sections with a cantilever out the front to achieve this front spire. We also wanted to layer it to have a gap to create a little bit more depth, and what we ended up achieving is being able to frame all of that out, as you can see from these photos. This was a huge project. Building a 12-meter high stage had its challenges for sure, but we pulled it off in the end. It looked great. Sweet, so this is another project that I did at Toto's. Our project was to do a DJ booth that looked like a spaceship. Essentially what I did is I designed this just by playing around with shapes. And the good thing about SketchUp is you have quite a lot of control over what you want to do. So you know, if you want these spires to be shorter, you can make them shorter. If you want them to be longer, they can be longer. But by doing it this way, essentially what I'd done is I made a shape that I was happy with, and then what I'd done is I'd exploded it out to create all the different shapes. Then once I had all the shapes, I had the measurements, and what I knew is that if all of these pieces are cut according to the right measurements, then they should all fit together according to plan. And yeah, this is what it looked like at the end. We're able to connect everything together. We made most of it out of core flute, some of it out of ply, and yeah, it looks great in the end. As hard as it was to build, it looked how it should have looked, and we were able to use those pieces for other designs afterwards. Sweet, so for Dimension 2020, wanted to come up with something a little bit different using printed core flute. I was also working with this dude Liam, who works for Oceania, and he had access to a lot of lights, so I wanted to incorporate a design that used as much lighting as we could, as well as projection and lasers. So the initial concept was to make this portal type shape with a laser coming out of the middle, with lights coming around the outside, and the white to be fabric so that it could be see-through for lights to be mounted behind. So what I did is I designed this frame using scaffold working backwards from the size of the PA. It's normally the number one consideration that we have to take into account is where is the PA going to go, how is it going to stay dry during events. So by designing it this way, the PA fit in nice and snug using minimal scaffolding, and then essentially what we did is I designed these back from the size of core flute sheets to make that. So what it looked like when it was all printed out, it came out of the printer looking like this. And then I was able to cut these pieces into the different sizes for the shapes, as you can see. And then we fixed them together on site. So by doing it like this, it had this 3D effect, and yeah, it looked super effective on the day. What it looked like when it was done. So this is the finished product. This is everything made and up on site. Yeah, it's a different angle shot there. And at night time. So yeah, it's super effective. No one's really done anything like that before, incorporating lasers and visuals and lighting in that way. So being able to create something new and unique was a great challenge. There's a couple more photos there. So in terms of design process, what I normally like to do is I work backwards from the venue that I'm going to be using. So what we can do is have a look at a project that I've worked on. Maybe if we jump into Sweet, so there's a few different ways of approaching design. One way, like I showed you with dimension, is working backwards from the size of the PA. If you have to take in consideration rain coverage. Another option is working backwards from the staging that you have available. So this was a trailer truss that was used for NZ Spirit stage in 2020. And what we did is we designed a graphic to go around that. The concept for this was to tie in the elements. So we had earth going into fire, into wind, and into water. We had a lot of the graphics outsourced to local artists, and then we tied it all in together into a stage. So what that looked like in the end is we had a beautiful looking stage. We also decided to incorporate Māori motifs, so Ranganui and Papatūānuku. And yeah, the client loved it and it looked great in the end. But yeah, in terms of design considerations, you've got, you know, PA, working back from the PA. You've also got your staging, and then another way to design is working backwards from a space. So this was a marquee that I designed a stage for Earthbeat. So essentially what I did first is I drew up the marquee all to scale, and then started playing around with designs. In terms of budget, there was minimal budget for this project, so what I decided to do was use bamboo. So for each of these straight lines, I ran bamboo to achieve this shape, and essentially what it looked like in the end was sweet, and what it looked like in the end was this. So yeah, by doing everything to scale, I was able to create cutting lists for people to help with the cutting, and then it was just a matter of placing it all together like a giant Lego set. But yeah, it looked great considering there was minimal budget, and I was using volunteers to help me out. But yeah, in the end everyone was happy and it looked great. Sweet, so in terms of design process, what I normally do is I'd know the venue, know where we're going to be setting up. So just to give you guys an example, this is a SketchUp model for Galatos. If you've got a laser measure, you should be able to smash out a measure up like this within a couple of hours. If you don't have a laser measure, just another person in the tape measure. You don't need to go too hard out. The main considerations you need to take into the main things you need to take into consideration is the PA, where is the PA sitting, we can't obstruct that, and just the stage heights. Then what I normally do, first off, I'll be working back off a design. Normally what you can do is go to what's called 3D Warehouse. SketchUp has this as part of their part of the SketchUp program as 3D Warehouse. And what you can do is you can essentially come here and type in anything that you like. So what we'd normally be using is truss. So if you type in box truss, and it comes up, if you click on models, And then yeah, you'll essentially have any which style that you need to work off. So for example, if we wanted to use a basic box truss goalpost shape, then we just download that. So another great thing with 3D Warehouse is you can type in lighting fixtures. And so if you want color washes, all your fixtures are available. Most of what you'd be using is available in here. And then the good thing is once you have those, you can start placing lights. And the good thing about doing it this way is you can essentially do whole lighting setups, and you can create plans that people can work off and easily execute without you having to micromanage every step of the design. So even for this design, if we wanted to use the front to fix on a facade and a back to hang lights, we can do that. To copy and paste, you just press Control as you're moving it. So in terms of the being able to use the program and the stuff, there's a lot better tutorials online for that. I'm just taking you through the process of how you can use the program specifically for stage design. So for example, if we've got these power lights, I know I'm going through a lot of this quite quickly, but anything that you kind of need to learn how to do in terms of basics, there's plenty of tutorials online, but I'm just showing you how the program can be used specifically for stage design. So for this, for example, if we're placing it on that back truss, one tip if you're wanting to space things out evenly is if you move it to the ends where the last fixture would be, and if you want there to be 5 within that gap, you just go divided by 5 into, and it'll fill that easily. So already we're starting to look like a bit of a stage. And then what you want to do is, if you want to put a facade on this, normally the easiest way to do this is to work backwards from the size of a full sheet. So for a full sheet of plywood or a full sheet of Perspex, it's 1200 by 2400. A lot of standard designs that we'll be doing for events is around a standard DJ booth. So what you can do is always just start from that and work backwards. So here's a good one. You know, that's the great thing about SketchUp is you can essentially type in anything and it's someone's already made it. So you know, click on DJ booth. See on this one, someone has already designed a whole stage with lights, so maybe we can even add on to their model. Sweet, so like I said, some people have put in a lot of effort to design a lot of this stuff themselves, you know, and it's a great way to kind of get a concept out if you need to. Sweet, so I guess if we want to do a concept, what we can do is come up with an idea. So maybe if we want to do a stage that looks like a clown, you can get a clown face that you like the look of, and we can work backwards off that. Okay, sweet, so this looks a little bit buzzy, we can maybe just use this one. So I'll download that. Sweet, for example, so like now that we've got this clown mask, what I can do is save it as a PNG, and what that means is there won't be any background within the image, and we've only got the shape itself. But yeah, once we've got that PNG image, to get it into our SketchUp model, simple as, so you just go File, Import, find the image that you wanted to use. So we'll go find that image. So the good thing with SketchUp is we get to play around with scales, how we want everything to fit, but normally what we want to do is just work around what size the DJ booth is going to be and how the thing is going to fit within that. Sweet, so when you're printing stuff out, what you'll either be using is A4, A3, but if you design it to A3 then it can be scaled down to A4. It's a little bit harder going the other way. So if we get A3 landscape, we'll get our model. And essentially what we can do is scale it down, copy and paste and have a few different views on one page. And normally for most layouts you do what's called an orthographic drawing. So you got a side view, a front view, a top view, and then a 3D view. Sweet, so presenting in a way like this, you can clearly get your idea across to whoever's going to be helping you build the stage, and also if you need to get sign off in terms of design. So yeah, as you can see with SketchUp, the options are limitless in terms of what you can do with this program. You're only really limited by your imagination. A lot of these things, they seem profound and impossible until you start, and then you give it a go, and then you can essentially create the impossible. The good thing about doing it this way is you get to create things that no one else has seen before and things that no one else has done. And by doing it that way, you'll always be ahead of the curve. But like I said in the last tutorial, the main step is around finding your creative identity, and in that way you'll always have something that's different because it's uniquely your own and it's uniquely you. But I know this is a pretty rough tutorial. Pretty much I'm just showing you guys what is available, what tools are out there to help you express and help you create and help you be current and creative with what you want to do. SketchUp is a great program because you can essentially use it to build anything. Sweet, so that's us, week 2 of Tuakana Teina. I know this was a little bit of a rough run through of stage design, but I just wanted to give you guys the tools to be able to express in new ways and create something that other people haven't created before, and also just to make you guys aware that there are these resources available. So yeah, be sure to make the most of it, push your creative boundaries as much as you can, try something new, and I wish you guys all the best.